let's be real for a second. For a lot of us, Ramadan can feel kind of like a revolving door, right? We walk in with all these high hopes, and then we walk out, well, pretty much the same person. So in this explainer, we're going to dig in and figure out why.
I mean, you know the feeling. Every single year it comes around. There's that buildup, that anticipation. It's just this constant, familiar part of our lives.
But then, you see those people. You know who I'm talking about. The ones who come out of the month and they just seem different. Like there's a new sense of peace about them, they've kicked a bad habit, and you can tell it's a real change. One that's actually gonna stick.
But then there's you. And maybe for you, it feels more like just flipping a switch off. The 30 days are over and bam, within a week, maybe even a few days, you're right back to square one. So, why? Why is it that this incredibly powerful month transforms some people, but for others, it's just a pause button? That is the exact question we're going to get into today. And really, the answer starts with a huge shift in our mindset. It all comes down to how we're actually looking at the month of Ramadan in the first place.
See, a lot of us walked into Ramadan with what you could call a magical view. We kind of hope the month itself will just automatically fix us. But the much more powerful way to see it is the training camp view. Think about it. Ramadan isn't some passive spiritual car wash where you just drive through and come out clean. No, it's a 30-day gym for your soul. It's designed for you to actively build spiritual muscle. And this whole idea is backed up perfectly by the ultimate goal mentioned right there in the Quran. It tells us the point isn't just to feel hungry or thirsty. The whole point is to develop a very specific skill, this internal state called taqwa, which gets translated as God consciousness or self-restraint. But here's what's so cool about the word taqwa. The root of the word actually means to shield yourself or to protect. It's like you're in a sword fight and you're parrying a blow. So taqwa isn't some vague, floaty feeling. It's an active skill. It's the very thing you're supposed to be building in this training camp, this internal shield that lets you block the hits from your own impulsive desires and your everyday bad habits.
Okay, so if Ramadan is this training camp, why are so many of us leaving without getting any stronger? Well, it usually boils down to making one of three very common training mistakes.
First up, and this one is probably the biggest one. We fast with our bodies, but we forget to fast with our souls. We're following the rules, no food, no water, but we're completely missing the whole point. The famous scholar Imam al-Ghazali actually broke this down perfectly. He talked about 3 levels of fasting. First, there's the ordinary fast. That's just, not eating or drinking. But then there's the elite fast. This is where you restrain your senses, your eyes from looking at junk, your tongue from gossiping, your ears from even listening to it. The problem is, so many of us get stuck on level 1. Our stomachs are empty, but we're still scrolling for hours, getting into arguments and talking behind people's backs. Our senses aren't even part of the training.
And there's actually a modern psychological term for this. It's called spiritual bypassing. It's when we use spiritual practices as a way to avoid dealing with our real issues, instead of using them as a mirror to confront our issues. So we might pray a lot more just so we don't have to have that tough conversation. Or we get really into charity work so we can ignore our own temper. The training camp becomes an escape instead of a place to actually do the work.
And mistake number 2. Okay, think about it. You wouldn't just walk into a gym with no plan and start randomly picking up weights, right? Of course not. You'd have a goal. And yet, so many of us walk into the spiritual gym of Ramadan without any clear intention of what we actually want to work on.
And this usually goes one of 2 ways. First, you've got the perfectionistic rulebook. This is that massive list of goals. I'm going to read the whole Quran twice, never miss a single night prayer, never get angry. It's this insane schedule that's guaranteed to make you crash and burn by day 10. The much smarter approach? A sustainable intention. Just pick 2, maybe 3 specific things. That's it. Maybe it's, I want to control my tongue, or I want to make sure I pray just one of my prayers on time every single day. You have to remember, consistency will always beat intensity.
All right, and that leads us to the third and honestly the most critical mistake of all. This is the one that explains why even if we do make some progress, it just vanishes after Eid. We basically treat Ramadan like it's a sprint. We go all in, full power for 30 days. But in the back of our minds, we know we're going to stop dead at the finish line, which is Eid. And this is exactly what sets us up for that classic post-Ramadan slump.
And check this out. This is where a little bit of science is super helpful. Behavioral science research shows that, on average, it takes about 66 days to form a new habit, to the point where it becomes automatic, where you don't even have to think about it.
Now, how long is Ramadan? It's about 30 days. See the problem here?
So here's what's really going on. Ramadan is amazing for one thing. It completely disrupts our old bad habits. It forces us off of autopilot. But it's just not long enough by itself to fully install and automate the new good habits. The whole transformation falls apart because we don't have a plan for what happens after the training camp ends.
Okay, so we've gone through all the technical reasons, the how-to of it, but let's shift gears for a second. Let's move from our heads down into our hearts and ask a question that really cuts through everything else. Just let that question sit with you for a moment. No judgment, no right or wrong answer. Just an honest question from you to you.
All right, so where do we go from here? How do we actually fix this and make a change that sticks, a change that lasts way beyond the finish line? It comes down to one last, really powerful way of looking at things. There's this incredible saying that just gets right to the heart of the matter. Basically, if you're worshiping the month of Ramadan itself, well, the month is going to end, and so will your worship. But if you're worshiping Allah, He's always there. If our focus is just on the month, our motivation dies with the month. But if the goal is bigger, if the goal is a relationship, then Ramadan is just one part of a much longer journey.
And that, right there, is the biggest takeaway. The people who are genuinely changed by Ramadan, they don't see it as a destination. They see it as a launchpad. It's not a 30-day race to a finish line. It's the rocket booster for the next 11 months. It's the place you go to break those old habits, try out some new ones, and then make a real plan to carry that energy forward. The training camp might be over, but that's when the real journey actually begins.